there is a future for this program, if I heard you correctly. And I'm asking you to speak to that for a moment, because there is some anxiety in the space about geopolitical shifts and what they portend for the future of this program. And what I heard you say, if I heard you clearly tonight, is that the desire for global mobility remains strong, and there is a future for these programs. They may have to be adapted, we may have to evolve, but there's a future. Am I hearing you correctly?
Yeah, I think there's definitely demand, and that demand will continue to grow.
The Eastern Caribbean Central Bank convened its 27th Sir Arthur Lewis Memorial Lecture. Keynote speaker, Dr. Kristin Surak, a London School of Economics professor, dissected citizenship by investment frameworks. These enable affluent individuals to acquire citizenship from nations like St. Kitts, Antigua, and Grenada. Surak termed them economic lifelines, funding infrastructure, education, and jobs, yet cautioned against perils like illicit finance and curtailed visa privileges. Drawing from research on 500 investors across 22 jurisdictions, Surak observed surging demand amid geopolitical flux. Increasingly, individuals pursue secondary passports for security or commerce. She advocated enhanced vetting for probity. Caribbean protocols, she remarked, rival or surpass European benchmarks. She underscored that predominant investor motivations are pragmatic, not nefarious.
Citizenship is insurance policy. So what is Xi Jinping going to do next? What is Recep Erdogan going to do next? And as one interview I spoke to described, in an authoritarian regime, the key thing is to retain flexibility. So many people are looking for an option just in case, an extra passport as a way to hedge risks. Now, what's been really interesting in looking at this field is that who those people are has changed dramatically over the past 10 years. So in 2015, there were very few US citizens whom I encountered who were looking at these options, but now we see more and more because they're worried about the government, they don't trust the government, they're not quite sure, they don't feel safe any longer, and they're not necessarily looking to move immediately. They want, simply a place they can go when they begin to feel incredibly unsafe as well.
Dr. Surak critiqued international scrutiny targeting Caribbean initiatives, noting challenges elsewhere.
It's also important to remember that, the EU has been putting a lot of pressure on Caribbean countries. The EU hasn't been pressuring a country like Turkey, for example, but the EU also pays Turkey 9 billion euros to keep refugees out of Europe. So there's a real politics in the background of this, which probably, to be honest, in thinking about Europe, probably every banana grower in the region would know about as well. But, there's still things. I think, some of these topics are still important topics for debate and discussion and figuring out here in the region where people think programs should go.
The scholar affirmed Caribbean CBI due diligence often eclipses European visa standards.
They've put together a statement or a set of draft legislation for the Eastern Caribbean Citizenship by Investment Regulatory Authority. You can go online and see the draft legislation that's going through the countries right now, and I do encourage everybody. I think it's important to, this is an important local debate, and it's important to inform yourself, to be a part of this debate in an intelligent way. So. I was having a look through it this afternoon, and it was making sure that countries agreed to regional standards regarding program operation, regarding due diligence checks, those background checks, and to be honest, in the Caribbean right now, they're often stronger than what you find in Europe for standard visas. Procedures around interviews and name changes, procedures around audits and escrow accounts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot, I think, that's being done in the region to tighten things up.
The professor called deliberations on the advantages and mitigations, urging functional cooperation.
Regional cooperation is absolutely crucial for this to happen. Without regional cooperation, it won't work, and it will be a race to the bottom. And there have been points in time when there has been a race to the bottom, between countries trying to compete against each other. And I think for thinking about the region, that's not a great strategy, because outside of the region, most people can't even tell the difference between the countries. It's sort of like one country says one thing and everybody thinks it's all the same. But it's also, I know, and I'm not even sure, even thinking about Donald Trump, if he could even remember the names of the different countries, you get those right. But it's, that element of regional cooperation is absolutely important.
Dr. Surak's discourse coincides with Caribbean policymakers instituting an oversight entity. Detractors allege fiscal evasion, but Surak contends empirical evidence reveals seekers prioritize mobility over malfeasance. Joachim Duplessis, HTS News Force.